Yeah, Will McClay on why he continues to not pursue leaving the Cowboys for a real GM job. Basically, getting the opportunity to pursue a championship, a Super Bowl, and work with these people is extremely important to me. I think it's good news. I think for Cowboys fans might not remember how bad the talent got at times on the run post Jimmy Johnson to Will McClay. 15, 18 years somewhere in there. It was wheels off and unpredictable, and McClay has stabilized and improved the organization, and really the only bad years that you have are quarterback injury years. There's no sustained losing. I think Will McClay gets a lot of credit for that, so I think it's a big dub to hear that, and, maybe I imagine Will McClay continuing in a very important role with the Cowboys, not unlike a Gil Brandt or something like that, Brian. Just a long type of deal.
I absolutely. I'd like to see Will have his own opportunity to hire his own coach and to pick his players and kind of navigate that. I think he would do a fine job with that. If I was a fan of another team and I needed a general manager, Will McClay would be a guy I would surely look at. You're absolutely right, Gavin. The stability that he's brought, his ability to marry the Joneses with the scouts, with the coaches, is something that a lot of these, my old boss, Larry Lacewell, he was able to do it because he was friends with Jerry Jones. People knew that, listen, you mess with Lace, you're probably messing with the Joneses. You're probably, Will seems to have that ability to kind of not put himself on with one group. He puts himself with, you feel like talking to Will that, like, he's for the coaches. He's for the scouts. He's for the Joneses. You don't get the feeling that he's going to always side with the scouts.
Because it was often contentious before him.
Very, very contentious. And Lace was a former coach. And so the coaches always felt like, that they were going to get their way here. And then the scouts kind of resented that because, well, wait a minute, you run our side of the building here. Why are you siding with the coaches over here and stuff?
Yeah.
So, it's Will has done a great job of just making sure that all parties involved, and they're really, as we know, they're really involved with consensus. They want that consensus, and to a point, it sometimes is a detriment, but other times it helps them with how they get their players on board.
And to build on that idea, I think that's something important to note. If somebody might be disgruntled or discouraged by the job that their personnel department is doing because of their last 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
It's not Will McClay's vision like it was, or it could be for other, pure GMs. So he's just gathering consensus. And I would love to see him have the opportunity to create the vision and be like a final say type of guy.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. There's that clip of him standing up and basically being the tiebreaker of Mozzie Smith.
Yeah.
Whether it was Bergeron, the tackle guard from Illinois, or Mozzie Smith, and there was that discussion on the clock.
Man, I'd love to go back and see what this team could look like right now.
No, exactly. But there's times you're going to stand on that table and be absolutely wrong. And I think Will has eliminated a lot of that being wrong.
Well, I mean, he nailed Tyler Smith 3 years ago.
He sure did.
A pick that came out of nowhere.
Yep.
The Leafau and Overshone were good. Cooper Beebe is probably going to be good. Marshawn Nealon is going to be good. So it's not like a total waste of the last.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's where I think that, the Joneses really do appreciate the Will, that he's able to smooth over all the rough spots that the Joneses might create.
And I don't even know where they would go for a replacement for him. That's a very special set of skills, what you talked about, getting all these different departments involved and feel like they have ownership and importance without being alienated, plus a guy with his skill level of team building.
Yeah,
and the ability to have the relationship with Jerry is huge here. You just can't replace him.
No, they would probably go with on staff, like Mitch LaPointe or somebody like that would get an opportunity. If you remember when Lacewell left, myself and Tom Siskowski were there, and Tom looked at me one day and goes, "You getting this job?" And I'm like, "No." "You getting this job?" And he goes, "No." And then it was Jeff Ireland. Like, he'd backdoored us to get to Parcells, and that's how he got the job. Yeah. So but they're going to likely hire people within it. It's not something that they went out and got Lionel Vital, and I've known Lionel for a long time. He was an absolute disaster as a player personnel guy. Mm-hmm. And so, when they and that was on a recommendation from Bill Belichick. Hey, Lionel Vital, come and bring him in. But that was and they haven't really gone outside that sense.
Okay, elsewhere here in the CNOTE, and we go to ESPN's Top 50. We've talked about this a couple of times. Got to it late last night. Wolchuk briefly mentioned it in NFL News Today. Osa at 10, Zach Martin at 21. Those are your two guys inside the top 50. I saw Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, reporting earlier today that multiple teams are expected to pursue Osa. But reportedly a top priority for the Jones boys continues to be the word coming out of the Senior Bowl. And as we hear it, he is headed for a big contract. Is he a good enough defensive tackle that you want to make a significant salary cap pie, contribution to him? Maybe 7 or 8% of your pie could go to Osa if the numbers are right, over $20 million per year. And it's exciting to me, because instead of letting all these pieces go, if you're committed to bringing back Osa, that is a huge draft piece you don't have to worry about. You could throw darts at a board for the next 8 years and not find a defensive tackle better than Osa.
Especially the one team that apparently is very interested in him is San Francisco. And if you go back and you watch the Cowboys games against the 49ers, it makes sense why San Francisco would be, because Osa played very well in those games. He was one of the Cowboys' better defenders in every meeting that they had with San Fran. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm into re-signing Osa. It depends, obviously, what the money is. Is he ending up getting $12 million per year? I don't know. But I am for trying to fill out this roster without going into the draft like, gosh, I need to get basically every position. We were talking today, linebacker is the one they really need to address in free agency, because this is not a draft that I think they're going to be able to get like a starting caliber linebacker unless they probably reach on it really high in the first or second round.
And you need a runner, you need a wide receiver, you probably need another offensive lineman. Like, I would love it if the first 3 picks you'd come off the board and all be on the offensive side of the ball, because you did bring back Osa and Tank and Jordan Lewis. And I don't think that's an insane amount of money to expect to spend, especially for a draft and develop team. After letting everybody go last year, having that happen again, I think would be devastating and push you well out of the playoffs.
It's likely going to happen again. And maybe their thought.
So you're saying move the page from Osa? Not going to happen?
Oh, I think my gut feeling is that they're going to try and get it done. He might become out of their ballpark. He played that well where pro personnel guys and gals are going to watch that tape, and a lot of teams around the league.
But Steven would know where the market is. If you're saying that, or do you think that's just lip service to satisfy the fans?
I think to me, he knows the market. Pay the guy the highest price you could pay the position, and it's no longer I'm the highest guy and I'm taking care of the market.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's going to be another big bloodletting of talent off this team, and I do worry about them. And this is where Will's job is going to be even more important, because they're going to have to hit on the draft, and they're going to have to hit in college free agency, which they spend money in. They give $250,000 bonus, guaranteed a contract for Span Ford, the tight end. They like to play that market because they see those guys on their board as draftable players, and so that's what they're going to try and do. And then they're going to have to try and replace all the guys that they're likely going to lose. This is just get ready for the second coming of the bloodletting, as I like to say.
Well, that would stink. I think you finish the final 8 games 5-3. You're playing a third place schedule. Yeah. It suggests that if you catch some breaks, maybe you could be back in the playoffs. But if you're not going to bring back any of those guys, then I'll have seen everything.
Well, I'd like to, maybe something different here is that we've got on before for signing their own. Maybe this is the way of we're not going to sign our own, and we're going to now go play in free agency. Maybe they're going to look. Maybe they're going to look at a Cincinnati Bengal player or a Tennessee Titan player or somebody like that. It used to be Stephen Jones said it. He says, "Hey, we have to look at how we handle free agency."
Yeah,
and maybe it's not. Hey, they've been burned by signing their own.
And if you're going to do the $40 million that basically I'm talking about in free agency and in payroll, I could get behind that as well. I think that would be a smart pivot. Instead of just taking your best players and re-signing them, look for the best players in free agency. Is Zach Martin going to retire? And Did the line get better last year when he went out? Is that something you even want to be considering at this point?
Well, he was not healthy.
Got better because the person in his place could move.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That helped.
That helped a lot. I mean, he was probably 60% of what we known from Zach Martin, and when he went out of the lineup, it was just a healthier body, and I think that helped BB, and I think it also helped the right tackle Steele with a healthier guy in there.
It's interesting. Tank Lawrence not in the top 50 free agents. I mean, I could definitely understand a fall off. I wonder how opposing front offices look at that situation with Tank, because if the market is that low and it's a single digit amount of millions. I think that would be a player that you would want back. He's still going to give you some pass rush. He's going to be tough against the run. I think, Tank's still a good physical defensive lineman. I would want him back. And I think Rico could be on the list as well. I mean, top 10 in yards per attempt among running backs with a shaky line and a passing game that was non-existent a lot of weeks. Like, I think Rico has value as well. I know he doesn't hit home runs, but I mean, top 10 yards per attempt in that setting is pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You just can't get into the end zone. Like the 2 touchdowns is still one that I'm just like, how did he just finish with 2 rushing touchdowns? That's insane.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you got it. He's a guy he just did it on a very small number. Why can't you find another guy that's the exact same? Because Rico had value this year. Soon as you give him market value, 4 or 5, whatever,
he was 1.2. He was 1.2 this year.
1.2 this year.
Yeah.
So if a guy who's getting 1.2 can do it, just find another 1.2 guy that can do it. Unless you're going to get a game breaker kind of dude or whatever. But yeah. I would be looking to do something like that, especially for a guy who's got the injury history that he does, and he had a pretty nice, healthy year this year. But I think that's the perfect example of letting a guy walk out. I think Osa's in a similar spot. Because he's going to command big dollars, and I don't think he will be worth that. But I do think there is a defensive tackle that'll be on the market that will be worth the money that they're earmarking potentially for Osa. There's somebody else better.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would answer that by saying without knowing who they are going to draft, I would look back in the last 15 years, and it's been bad. Like, this front office hasn't been good. They had DeMarco Murray in the building. They didn't really turn him loose until year 4, and then you have Zeke, who you overpaid. The Tony Pollard mismanagement. I don't have faith in their ability to go find another guy that can give you what Rico does. And if you go into next year with guys under 4 yards per attempt, we can't make respectable third down yardages.
See, then I would be making it a point in my front office to say this can't be, like, we got basically majority of the league that can go identify a low-cost running back that can be productive. And you actually just did do it with Rico. It took you some time. Part of it was because of the injuries. But they're out there. If you're a team that cannot, you're supposed to be a good drafting team, and you can't identify a cheap running back to go be productive for you, you have a giant weakness in your front office that almost none other front office has.
And you don't have a 4th rounder this year. I think that one hurts quite a bit in this situation, because I do want running back, a wide receiver, and an offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds. And, that would contribute to my decision there on Rico. Brandon Laurie pointing out Tony Pauline report here on Cowboys Twitter. Cowboys may be taking a hard look at wide receiver early in the draft. Quote, I'm told the team will look for a receiver during the first 2 rounds to pair with CeeDee Lamb. We've talked about their options with Luther Burden and McMillan at Arizona and Igbuka at Ohio State. How are we looking at 44, Brian? Some plug-and-play type of guys there as well?
And it's funny because we're getting ready up in Krusty's Corner. Wolchuk and I did a mock draft on the draft show this morning, and I wanted to go through it and see what you guys thought about it. And we're going to address that wide receiver spot for sure.
All right, let's take that as a tease.